This summer's transfer window is massive for West Ham United and David Moyes. Two separate things, collectively the same thing, but also two separate things as well. But before we get into that, let's go back to last summer. We brought in 4 players, Areola, Zouma, Vlasic and Král. Now only 2 of them can be labelled as a success in my opinion. I think that's fair. The season before, obviously we finished 6th in the Premier League, qualified for Europa League, brought in those 4 players. We've gone on to finish 7th and qualified for European football again. Now I'm aware we've obviously dropped a league position and into the lesser European competition. But I think it's fair to suggest, now you may dispute this, but just work with me here, give me the benefit of the doubt at least. I think it's fair to suggest, had we not had the Europa League this season, we'd have picked up that additional 2 points somewhere and therefore finished above Manchester United and qualified for the Europa League again. So essentially we just consolidated and all it took was 2 signings to work, Areola and Zouma, that's it. But we can't afford that this summer. We cannot afford a 50% success rate in the transfer market this summer because it feels like the Premier League is going to be better next season. So for West Ham to simply consolidate further, to not move forward or drop backwards, to finish 6th or 7th next season, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be tough. Now we do say that, I am aware we do say that every summer about the Premier League, don't we? That team's going to get better. Usually Aston Villa's in there. And it may be true, but for every 2 teams that get better, 2 teams have to get worse. They can't all move up the table. For everyone that moves up, someone's got to move down, essentially, haven't they? We've just got to make sure we're not the team moving down. Ideally, moving up. But if you were to offer me now to finish 6th in the Premier League next season, obviously I'm not agreeing to no success in the trophies or whatever, but finish 6th in the Premier League next season, I'd be happy with that. Providing we do well in the competitions. I want a trophy next season, that's my priority. Anyway, getting sidetracked already. Bit of a difficult video to explain and get it all out, so hopefully it works. Just stick with me, please. But if you're not, do drop a like on the video before you disappear. So this summer's transfer window is crucial to simply stay still next season, and that's without taking into consideration that we need to replace the players that are leaving and upgrade on some positions that we wish to. For example, the left back position, making this window crucial for West Ham United and David Moyes. And the reason I'm talking about them individually, because I don't really feel, I do feel that they have been individual over the last couple of transfer windows, and that's not good. We can't afford that. Again, and like I said, last summer, I don't think it was that important, the window. I think we got 2 transfers right, and that was enough. I'm not sure it would be enough this summer. Now I'm going to go back. When I'm talking about this video, it's important that the board back David Moyes sufficiently. It's crucial. And I don't necessarily mean in terms of transfer budget. Obviously that has an impact on things, but I'm not sitting here saying that the board need to give David Moyes a blank checkbook or give him 150 million to spend or anything like that. More in the case of David Moyes needs to at least rubber stamp the deals. The players that we bring in must be approved by David Moyes. If David Moyes has a list of targets, the players that we bring in must be on those lists at least. At least. We can't afford another Alex Král or Nikola Vlasic. Now, obviously people have disputes in their own opinions as to whether Moyes brought these in, were they Moyes signings, were they David Sullivan signings and so on. It doesn't really matter today, does it? The fact that what does matter is that Alex Král barely played last season and Vlasic played a little bit more, but didn't really impact the season enough. It wasn't enough for a £25 million signing. I think that is fair to say. And that's my point. We can't afford this going into next season. Now, there is obviously a few reasons why that might have happened at West Ham in the past. But let's just go back to January transfer window. We know we made bids. Okay, we know we did. David Moyes has confirmed we made record-breaking bids himself. The respected journalists and sort of in the nose around West Ham confirmed bids were made for certain players, which sort of adds up with what David Moyes is suggesting. David Moyes even named one player, Luis Diaz, who's now at Liverpool. Calvin Phillips' Instagram post on Rafinha's posts on international duty just after, as soon as the window closed essentially, almost mocking West Ham's £50 million bid. So that would just suggest that that was true as well. So we believe, well I certainly believe we made bids for players in January. However, I don't believe we made sufficient bids for players in January. And there's a big difference here. If Moyes wants player A and we bid for player A, but the club's asking for 50 million and we're bidding 30, it's not really sufficient, is it? Are we bidding for Moyes' target? I mean, yes, but is the bids realistic? Not really. And that's the problem. That's the issue I've got really with the January transfer window. Probably more than not bringing anyone in. I think if we were if Leeds were demanding 50 million for Rafinha and we were bidding 50 million, and there were some issues as to why we couldn't sign him. Fine, that will happen. Perhaps Rafinha would say, I don't want to go to West Ham, actually, I've got a job to do with Leeds United first. Fine. All the board essentially can do is meet the selling club's valuation of the player that David Moyes wants. We weren't doing that, and I have a bigger issue with that than actually not signing anyone at the end of the January transfer window. So we can't afford that this summer. We can't afford it. And I've always had my own theory, which is there such a thing as paying too much for the perfect signing? And I would suggest not. Sadio Mane is always a player I pick out. The Klopp wanted a player with these attributes, and his committee went and found a player. Sadio Mane, paid 50 million. It was a lot of money at the time. It's worked. You know, he's probably leaving Liverpool this summer, but he's leaving as a legend and one of the most important signings that Liverpool have made in recent times anyway. Getting sidetracked. I have a habit of doing that, don't I? Oh, while we're here, can I just confirm the Gangster Bollocks boxers are very comfy, actually. I've got them on today. I'm not going to stand up and flash them, but they're very good. The Geo pouch is quite good. This video is not sponsored by Manscaped. It's not sponsored by everyone, so I can put an extra advert in and get some money that way. But they're comfy. They've got the Geo seal of approval. Anyway, from bollocks on my boxers to me chatting bollocks about the transfer window again. So that's my issue with the January transfer window. We can't afford that now. Now I get why when you first recruit a manager, a club may be reluctant to back that manager. Okay, I get it. When the board got their fingers burnt with Pellegrini, you know, Pellegrini spent 100 million. I don't think it was for what it's worth, I still don't think that transfer reign, if you like, was as a disaster as some people make on. I don't think it was as successful as it could have been, but again, I don't think it was that bad. You know, there's been players from that signings. You know, Fabianski's done very well. Diop's done decent enough, I think. It's just not worked out for him. I think Fornals has done well. I think Fredericks has had his part to play. Trying to think of other players that we brought in. Obviously, Roberto's not the one, is it? But anyway, sidetracked again. But I get why when Moyes comes in, the board are a bit hesitant to throw cash at David Moyes. They've just got it wrong to some extent. But Moyes now has a track record at West Ham saying, look what I can do with this squad. When I have 15 players I trust, look what I can do with them. I've got them 6th and I've got them 7th in the Premier League. Give me another 3, 4, 5 players that I will actually use. Let's see where I can take West Ham. I think he deserves that backing. I often think it's important, always think it's important that the manager essentially dies on his own sword to some extent. Now, if David Moyes was to fail at West Ham, he fails at West Ham using players that he wanted at West Ham United. And this is where I've sometimes been a little bit iffy with managers at clubs failing, but yet it's not their players they're using. I think it's a bit harsh, really, to judge how a manager does with someone else's squad, and we need to make this squad David Moyes's. The players I just spoke about, you know, Fredericks is gone now, Yarmolenko's gone now. There's a lot of money off the wage bill for David Moyes to go and spend. So we're getting rid of, I don't want to call it dead weight. I think that's a bit of a harsh term to use for people that have contributed successfully to West Ham recently. Perhaps we didn't get value for money out of Yarmolenko, but we certainly got memories and important goals. Same with Fredericks. It was a free signing. I think we got what we got from Fredericks was good, really. David Martin did the job he was meant to do, kind of thing. But these people are leaving the club this summer now, and it gives us an opportunity to back David Moyes. Now, when I say Moyes has to sort of bring in his players and his targets, a good example of this is the centre-back that we are believed to be very close to signing. Depends which report you read. But Neif Aguerd, I don't know him. Okay, I've seen him literally, you can count the times I've seen him on one hand, and that was at the African Nations. Now, so therefore, how can I get excited about this transfer deal? Well, the only way I can get excited about this transfer deal, I guess, is hyping his statistics to some extent. There's a ceiling. If we go buy a player like Kurt Zouma, I got excited about the signing of Kurt Zouma because I know Kurt Zouma. Well, I don't know him, but I've seen what he can do for Chelsea, seen what he could do for Everton. I like the centre-back. Could be a good signing for West Ham. Happy days. I'm excited about it. With Aguero, the ceiling of Gio's excitement is a little bit lower. But the reason I can get excited is if and only if it's David Moyes' choice. If we're signing him because David Moyes wants him, then I'll get excited because it's another player in the squad that David Moyes is going to utilise, that David Moyes hopefully will trust immediately and say, there you go, into the starting 11 you go. What makes me worry a little bit is if it's not that. because we still don't know who has chosen Aguerd. I know people say, well, it's David Moyes' #1 target, but surely we say that whenever we sign a player. Vlasic probably got titled as Moyes' choice to replace Lingard or whatever last summer. I probably said it myself. I naively probably thought David Moyes had handpicked Nikola Vlasic and said, that's the guy I want. And you kill him, and I've changed my mind, haven't I? But it's important that this summer, anybody that arrives through the doors at West Ham United has the David Moyes seal of approval. And I don't necessarily mean identified by David Moyes. It doesn't mean David Moyes has to have scouted him or anything like that. Just has David Moyes' authorization on this deal. David Moyes says, yes, that's the guy I want. And unless Moyes says that, we can't have him. We can't afford any more errors in the transfer market, because I feel that next season in the Premier League is going to be quite unforgiving. You spend 50 million and 25 million of it is spent incorrectly, you're going to get punished for it a little bit. This squad, when I did that video on Saturday, that's the video I put up at the end of this video, right? It's there if you haven't seen it. I just looked at the squad that we've got currently for next season. So we've got 18 players currently. We're allowed 25, so there's a space for 7 players. Now if Connor Coventry is going to be in the squad next season, fine. There you go, 19. We now have 6 spaces available. That's a lot of spaces. Next season, there's 5 substitutions available in the Premier League. We need to make sure we are in a position to utilise that rule next season. We can't not use it. You know, sometimes this season, Moyes has been a bit reluctant to use his substitutions. Doesn't really use 3. We can't afford that, especially we're navigating a European campaign as well. And there's been plenty of games this season we feel like been watching players a little bit tired, a little bit fatigued, like the season's catching up with them. We can't afford that next year. We need to utilise the 5 substitution rule. That means making sure that Moyes has got an adequate squad available to him to go on and do that. Now, another way I don't mind clubs... Oh, sorry, I'll just go off a tangent before I get onto that. The David Moyes seal of approval, like I said, I'm not expecting Moyes to have gone and watched him play 100 times like he would have done in his Everton days. Football has changed, times have moved on, and I feel like we were a little bit lagging the time. The one signing that actually sort of defied Moyes' way of doing transfer dealings at Everton was Thomas Souček. Because remember Jordan Miles? I'll never forget that. I'm never going to forget the name Jordan Miles, right? So that's the person that's sort of attributed for the signing of Thomas Souček, where Moyes went to Jordan Miles and said, listen, I need somebody that can do this, this and this. Is there anyone you can find? And Miles ran the data, ran the numbers, and I don't think it was quite as simple as him just clicking a few buttons and going, here you go, there's your answer. I'm sure there was a bit more that went into it in that. But Jordan Miles was the one that identified Thomas Souček through statistics, through data, through analysis, and said, here you go. And then essentially Moyes put his rubber stamp on it, and in came Thomas Souček, and it was a success. But my point is, not that we have to do that all the time, my point was that was a player that David Moyes hadn't scouted before. David Moyes didn't know who Thomas Souček was. It was found by somebody else that David Moyes had enough faith in and said, yep, that'll do, let's get him in, sorted, bosh. And it's been a successful signing. I know there's a contract dispute going on. I know that he's potentially up for sale this summer. Even if he does go this summer, I'm still going to say the signing of Thomas Souček was a success at West Ham United. I know he's not had a great season, but before that he had a fantastic 1.5 seasons. A big part of the reason that A, we stayed up when he first came in, and B, we qualified for the Europa League when we finished 6th. So he's been a huge success at West Ham United. But it needed David Moyes' rubber stamped into it, so Moyes would trust him when he came in. We need that straight away. Now, another reason I don't mind, or I understand why clubs perhaps wouldn't give full control of transfers to their manager, is if you've already got a successful recruitment team set up, or you've built or you're building a successful recruitment team, player recruitment that is. You look at Newcastle acquiring, what's his name? Ashworth from Brighton, and David Weir's taking his job at Brighton. And my point is, they've gone out and poached who they think is one of the best people in the game to oversee the transfer department. So you'd imagine that Howe perhaps isn't going to have complete control at Newcastle, but there's something there. Liverpool's a perfect example, maybe. If Klopp was to leave today with the new manager, get complete control over the transfers? I don't think so, because they've got their transfer committee set up, and it's a success. Luis Diaz, the most recent one, success. They've just signed Fabio Carvalho from Fulham this summer as well. They don't really get many transfers wrong, Liverpool. There's one or two you can and ah about, Naby Keita, I would suggest, hasn't been the best signing they could have made. But generally, overall, their signings have been thoroughly impressive at Anfield. So would the new manager get to come in and just change up? I'm not too sure. I think they would actually go out and find somebody that plays a similar style of football to Jurgen Klopp. So actually, the guy comes in and almost just does what Jurgen Klopp does, and they continue to do the transfers. Anyway, my point is, I understand that, but we don't have that at West Ham. We've not had that. When Moyes come in, there wasn't a scouting team. It left. The book of scouts left when Huselos and Pellegrini went. And for all the critics Pellegrini and Huselos got for that transfer spending, and I understand them, I do understand them, at least they identified who they wanted and went and got them. That's what we'll say. Perhaps they didn't have enough money, and like I said, it may not have been a success. But at least they said Pablo Finales, Diop, they're the players that we want, and then they went and got them to the club. And we need that with Rob Newman now. We need that with Newman and David Moyes and David Sullivan. Whoever it is in charge of transfers, we have to go get the right ones that are on David Moyes' list. We can't afford mistakes. We can't afford £25 million errors, let's call it, or players that are going to take a little while to settle in, or we're going to write the first season off and say, okay, if you can contribute in 2023-24, that'd be good. We can't afford that. Liverpool done their homework on Luis Diaz. I mean, they were a little bit rushed, Liverpool. I don't think they were quite going to get him in January. I think Spurs did the move, didn't they? Spurs went in, negotiated, and then once the negotiations were done, Liverpool said, oh, brilliant, we'll give you what Tottenham are doing. Since you're accepting that, we'll give you the same thing, and now we'll nick him. But I just lost my train of thought now. I got distracted, didn't I? My point is, we can't afford any errors this summer. Moyes is going to have a limited budget. It's not going to be bottomless. There's no blank cheques getting handed out. But whatever it is, 70, 80 million maybe, we've got to make that count. We have to make it work. And we need to get in players that Moyes is going to use. I'm quite patient when it comes to the transfer window. I think I'm quite relaxed. I feel fine now. I'm not bothered at all. I'm not fussed that Tottenham got Perisic and Villa have got Kamara and Coutinho. As long as our targets aren't going missing, I'll only worry if Moyes has identified Nea Ferguard as his number one centre-back and he actually signs for someone else, or someone made a valid point in the video yesterday that Fulham might come in for Areola as well. Now, if we lose out on the players Moyes wants, that's when I'll worry. But until that happens, I'm quite relaxed. However, obviously the fixtures come out on the 16th, so 2 weeks till the fixtures come out. But assuming we play every weekend in August, which I don't see why we would do, and the season starts on the first weekend or whatever, that would mean West Ham got 6 games in August when the window's open. 6 games, 2 Europa Conference League playoffs in there as well, and 4 league games. We can't really afford to have this squad for those games, can we? We need players in ASAP, ready for pre-season, get them integrated and ready for August. But the business doesn't have to be complete by the season kicking off, but we certainly need 1 or 2 of our more important signings in by then, I think. And more importantly, we need to make sure that David Moyes gets the players that David Moyes wants and the players that David Moyes will use next season. So yeah, there you go. Hopefully all that makes sense. It was just something I've been thinking about for quite a while now, because I think David Moyes has got enough credit in the bank. We often speak about it on this channel to almost excuse a player for having a bad game. So when Creswell got his first sending off against Lyon, not the second one, the one against Lyon, it was like, well, yeah, he's made a mistake, it's not ideal, but he's got enough credit in the bank. He's still having a good season. Moyes gets that as well when he makes errors. The Brighton game, we finished 7th, good, decent season, well done, David Moyes, but you got the Brighton game massively wrong, but you've got credit in the bank. I think he's running out of credit in terms of the transfers. I think him and the board collectively and individually, I think the jury's out a little bit, and it's a case of you need to get this window right, otherwise we're in danger of starting to go backwards a little bit. We've had a season of consolidation, like I said, not a bad thing. I will be happy with another one next season, but to do that I think we need to get the right players in. So huge transfer window for David Moyes, and a huge transfer window for West Ham United, and let's hope that he gets the players that he wants and we don't do any of these silly bids we saw in January, which is just low ball offers. I don't like them. Anyway, I'm going to shut up now. If you've enjoyed this video, you've enjoyed this rambling somehow, please drop a like, comment, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll be back tomorrow with my goalkeeper video. They've got a few goalkeepers that I wouldn't mind seeing at West Ham, and I'll explain the concept tomorrow anyway. But on your screen in a few seconds is that squad video if you want to check it out. Catch you in a bit.